Hey guys, it's Record. This is the official beatbox tutorial for How to Save a Life by the Fray. This is off of their 2005 album, How to Save a Life. And the drummer on this is Mr. Ben Wysocki. And I have a video out that I released recently for the actual drum version of this song, the drum tutorial of the song, if you guys want to check out how to actually play it on the drums. Today I'm going to basically be translating that into beatboxing. And I made a beatbox cover for this as well as a drum cover, so please check out both of those, and I will link the beatbox cover below so you guys can check it out. But without further ado, let's get into it. So it's actually a very simple groove, and if you guys saw my previous video on Conversations by the House Jacks, I was talking about syllabic content and kind of how to use syllabic content to match your grooves and how to basically use syllabic content to match your grooves and how to match your style and kind of use them as a way to depict what you're playing. So the way that this groove breaks down into syllabic content is actually very simple. It's only one phrase. You know, some grooves will kind of be multiple phrases. You're going to use kind of multiple grooves. Basically, each groove represents a phrase. Some songs have multiple grooves. This song is one groove the entire time. So it's one phrase. And the phrase for the syllabic content is the following. Boom to pa to pa te boom pa te boom to pa te pa te boom pa te boom. One more time, that's boom to pa te pa te boom pa te boom to pa te pa te boom pa te boom. The way that I use syllabic content is essentially whatever feels right in the flow. So what I was using just now was one specific way to kind of translate your parts of your drum set into this groove. So I'm going to break it down. The easiest way to kind of start out with this is you're going to take out your skip, which is kind of an important part of the groove, and you're going to break it down to just the straight line. So that's boom to pa te te boom pa te boom to pa te te boom pa te boom. One more time, that's boom to pa te te boom pa te boom. That's your idea. Next, you're going to add in your skip. That's going to sound like this. Boom to pa te boom pa te. Again, boom to pa te boom pa te. So that's your idea. So it's kick, hi-hat, and snare. My kick in this case is my boom. Your hi-hat is your che. And your pa is going to be your snare. So, boom te pa te. Again, that's boom te pa te. That would be kick, hi-hat, snare, hi-hat, what I just did. So now I'm going to show you guys how this sounds with the actual sounds. And then I'm going to bring it back to the syllabic content. And I'm going to dial it back and forth. If you saw my previous video, you'll know the way that I think about translating sounds is like a dial. So you're taking a dial and you're moving it back and forth, and that's basically creating your sound. So that way you can very easily go from the actual beatbox sounds to your syllabic content back to your beatbox sounds, and it creates a really easy, direct way to translate that work. So without further ado, this is the official groove. Boom to pa te boom pa te 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 boom. Okay, so now for the dial part. So essentially what I just did again is I had the actual groove and beatbox language and then the syllabic content going back and forth. So I'm going to start with your syllabic content, and then I'm going to slowly bring that into the beatbox sounds. You guys can kind of hear what that sounds like. So once again, I have my boom is my kick, my tse is my hi-hat, and my pa is my snare. So kind of keeping that in mind, boom, kick, tse is hi-hat, Pa is your snare. Keeping that in mind, I'm going to use that groove now. So it sounds like this, really slow. Boom, tse, pa, tse, boom, pa, tse, boom, tse, pa, tse, boom, pa, tse, boom, tse, pa, tse, boom, boom, tse, boom, tse, boom, tse. So the first half of this groove is boom, tse, pa, tse. One more time, that's boom, tse, pa, tse. So like I mentioned earlier, that's going to be your kick, hi-hat, snare, hi-hat. Boom, tse, pa, tse. One more time. Boom, tse, pa, tse. So in beatboxing, that sounds like... Again, so kick, hi-hat, snare, hi-hat. Boom, so boom, tse, pa, tse. And the syllables I'm using are just one option. You know, there's so many different syllables, and depending on the groove I'm looking at, I'll be using different syllables to kind of match the flow of the groove. Once again, it's all about kind of basically what syllables work well to transition then into your beatbox sounds. With some other grooves, you're going to use other syllables. If you see my tutorial for Conversations, the house sax song, I use different syllables because I use syllables that translated better into that specific groove. For this, I'm using these syllables. So the syllables are not always the same, which can be confusing, but it's honestly all about just whatever flows best with the groove. And please come up with your own syllables. If you can think of syllables and sounds that sound better, then please do that. But these are, once again, just the ones that I kind of think work for this groove. So once again, your first half is going to be boom, tse, pa, tse. Boom, tse, pa, tse. Once you have that down, just so when you're learning this, also just practice with the syllabic content. So once you have that down, we'll switch to the second half of the groove. Okay, so your second half of the groove is a little more involved. Basically, the syllabic content for it is tse, pa, tse, boom, pa, tse. Once again, that's tse, pa, tse, boom, pa, tse. So, tse, pa, tse is hi-hat, snare, hi-hat. Tse, pa, tse, boom, pa, tse. Boom, pa, tse is kick, snare, hi-hat. So, tse, pa, tse, so hi-hat, snare, hi-hat, kick, snare, hi-hat. Hi-hat, snare, hi-hat, kick, snare, hi-hat. Tse, pa, tse, boom, pa, tse. So what that sounds like in beatboxing is... That's kind of the concept. And once again, you have a very steady, muddy beat groove with your skip in there. So, boom, tse, pa, tse, boom, pa, tse. So, boom, tse, pa, tse, boom, pa, tse. We're basically picking up the second half from where that skip happens. Your skip is going to be your tse, pa on your snare. So, tse, pa, tse, boom, pa, tse. Once again, that's tse, pa, tse, boom, pa, tse. So now, once again, I'm going to do both halves of the groove, dialing from syllabic content to beatbox, and then from syllabic content to beatbox. And please, during this video, feel free to kind of move it around at your pace, because there's so many different ways of making these sounds. This is just one specific guide, and a really quick way to get to the groove and get to your core and your essence of what you're trying to achieve. And once again, your syllables will change depending on the groove. So if you want to use other syllables for this, please do. But basically, just think about the dial of creating syllabic content, such as saying syllables that work. So syllables in English that work. And then moving that to your beatbox sound. That's your concept. So now let's do first half of how to save, and then second half of how to save. And I'm going to do... Once again, from syllabic to beatbox. From syllabic to beatbox, you guys can hear it. And then that concludes this tutorial. And if you have any questions, please comment down below. Check out my other tutorials as well. And thank you for watching. Cheers. Boom, tse, pa, tse. 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 Tse, pa, tse, boom, pa, tse. Tse, pa, tse, boom, pa, tse. Tse, pa, tse, boom, pa, tse. Entire groove. Boom tse pa tse pa tse boom pa tse boom tse pa tse pa tse boom pa tse boom tse pa tse pa tse boom pa tse boom tse pa tse pa tse. The way to use your syllabic content is by slowly closing your mouth on that sound. So from just a kick drum sound, we have boom, 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 until you get to the sound. It's all subjective. That's one direction. Think about your dial and think about using syllables to help guide you, because that will really oversimplify the way that you can learn it and make the process very quick. Thank you. Take care.